I'm back.
All your favorite wrestling shows rolled into one. Welcome to the We Book It podcast. Let's start the show.
I'm back.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Who's Next NXT. Shout out to Big Daddy C, who handled the show for me last week, hosting duties. I was spending time with the wife, a little bit under the weather, so I needed that break. And of course, Big Daddy C took care of business for your boy. But I'm back this week, and we had a huge episode of NXT this week. Oh my gosh, guys. I can't wait to dive into this and talk to you guys about everything that happened. But first and foremost, I'm your host, Virgil. Humble to be with you guys once again on another episode of Who's Next NXT. Make sure that you guys smash the subscribe button. Make sure that you guys also like and share this podcast so that way you never miss any of the action over here on the We Book It network. Now, with that being said, you also want to make sure that you hit that notification bell so that you also never miss it whenever we drop new content, which we drop content all the time. So, again, guys, like I said, I appreciate you all so much. This was a huge episode of NXT, far bigger than what I assumed or thought that it was going to be. But listen, it did not disappoint. Shawn Michaels, somebody whose name has kind of went under the radar, especially with everybody loving what The Undertaker is doing with AAA. Shawn Michaels came through this week with a killer episode of NXT. It was one that you definitely did not want to miss, including the NXT Championship match, which had a surprise ending to it and everything like that. So, but before we get to any of that, let's talk about the opening of the show. So, guys, like I said, this episode of NXT was one that set and laid the groundwork for not only for Heatwave, but also it laid the groundwork for what's to come in NXT. And I'm just excited, like I said, because it's so much good stuff in NXT. And like I said, the familiar face that is going to now be, running things in NXT, probably the guy that's going to be challenging and probably the one to dethrone none other than Tony D'Angelo. Like I said, for me, I think that this is one thing that you just can't miss. So here we go, guys. We're going to get right down to it. So hold on. With that being said, sorry, I had to send out this tweet for NXT so that way we get people tune in on this end. All right. So with that being said, let's get right down to business. So the Great American Bash will see Tony D'Angelo defend the NXT Championship against Naraku in a rematch, this time in a street fight. This could be where Naraku finally takes the title and D'Angelo's top spot in NXT totem pole. But if not, he could definitely be done as championship contender for the foreseeable future. You also got Nattie and Jaida Parker will once again meet one-on-one, with Nattie previously having knocked off Jaida Parker and went on to unsuccessfully fight for the NXT Women's Championship. Their next encounter should settle the score or at least set up their one final face-off in the NXT Underground. And then after much hype, Reina Volcan will make her long-awaited debut against WWE LFG Season 2 winner Skylar Ray. A standout performance will go a long way in establishing her as a major player in NXT Women's Division. All right, so the show began with DarkState versus Saquon Sugars and Noam Dar and Ramiro Moreno. So Noam Dar and Romeo Moreno might be the only people on the NXT roster DarkState haven't made enemies out of until now, that is. They allowed Saquon Sugars to tag in early so he could get his hands on Dion Lennox, only for Lennox to immediately tag right back out the match. DarkState was in control during the commercial break. Sugars was impressive once he finally got going, while Dar and Marino were fun to watch with their aerial offense that was enough to wake up the crowd moments before Sugars sent Lennox through the pillar structure behind the barricade. With Sugars out of the equation, the remaining members of DarkState were able to dominate Marino. Osiris Griffin pinned him to pick up the victory for his team, and DarkState picks up the victory in this one as they defeat Saquon Sugars, Noam Dar, and Romeo Marino. So again, like I said, you see here DarkState trying to reestablish themselves. NXT's tag team division is depleted enough that it wouldn't hurt to keep Dar Marino together going forward. Sugars continues to show signs of potential now that he's on his own. He'll be fine despite the defeat here, and it's only a matter of time before he and Lennox face off in a rematch from the Great American Bash, with Sugars likely scoring a second straight win over Lennox. So we'll have to see what happens there. Kendall Gray and Lola Vice face off. So Kendall Gray said she would have preferred to run it back with either Kaylani Jordan or Kylie Armstrong, but was happy Lola Vice became number one contender to her NXT Women's Championship. Vice wants Gray to prove that her win over her at the Great American Bash wasn't a fluke, and that she had to scratch and claw her way to the championship before finally getting the job back at Stand and Deliver. Gray bit back by telling Vice that she doesn't need validation, nor did she need years to prove herself as worthy of holding the gold, unlike Vice. They argued who between the two of them was vulnerable and weak before Vice claimed that she may have been beaten in a match, but not in a fight. That led them to making it official. Guys, can't wait for it. It's going to be Gray versus Vice in an NXT Underground match for the NXT Women's Championship on the August 4th edition of NXT, y'all. I'm telling you, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. This heated interaction was quite the pleasant surprise, seeing as Vice or Gray's strong suit, both, neither one of them cuts good promos. If you followed this channel for any time, you know how I feel about the NXT women. I think they have the strongest division in all of women's wrestling. That includes WWE and AEW. However, at the same time, when it comes to wrestling, they put on hella good matches. However, their promo skills need a lot of work. But here, these two literally had me glued to my seat the whole time. Vic Joseph was quick to point out on commentary that Vice has never lost an NXT Underground match, so it will be a nice feather in Gray's cap to be able to beat her at her own game and seemingly send her to the main roster. It's also worth pointing out that Ren Sinclair initially urged Gray to think about agreeing to the stipulation. Hopefully that wasn't supposed to hint at Sinclair costing her the title. They're too great together to be broken up right now. Next up, guys, we got Keanu Carver versus Hank Walker. So Keanu Carver temporarily sidelined Hank Walker after attacking him outside of the arena at the Great American Bash. He already defeated Walker's tag team partner, Tank Ledger, 2 weeks ago, and there was no reason to believe that wasn't going to go any different. Sure enough, Carver dominated the majority of the match. Walker had a brief flurry of offense, only to get put down by Carver. I really hate what they're doing with Hank and Tank. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. I am flustered at the fact that these two gentlemen very well should be on the main roster tagging right now, because God knows SmackDown needs tag teams. And instead, you have them jobbing out, like I said, to Keanu Carver, who I believe is going to be a big star. I do believe he has the tools to be a big star. He will show who he is. So I don't know. We'll see. But Carver continued to beat down Hank and Tank, but was thwarted by EK Prosper. Hank and Tank joined forces with Prosper to hit the finishers on him, leaving him laying. So while Keanu Carver looked bold and good in the match, he eventually got tag teamed by 3 different dudes. Pause. And that caused him to eventually take all 3 of their finishers. So we'll see what happens with that. So next up, this is the one that we've been waiting on. Jaida Parker, Miss Parker, is going up against one-on-one with Nattie. Hopefully, this is the end of this feud between these two because Jaida Parker has bigger fish to fry, and I know Nattie is there as an enhancement talent to help get the women over in NXT, and I appreciate what she's doing as Nattie Neidhart. So Jaida Parker was immediately at a disadvantage due to Nattie having Carmen Petrovich and Nikita Lyons in her corner. They helped Nattie target Parker's knee going into the commercial break, but in a cruel twist of fate, Parker weakened Nattie's own knee and locked in the sharpshooter. Lyons and Petrovich argued over whether they should throw in the towel for Nattie, but it was ultimately Thea Hale who popped up at ringside to do it for them and award Parker the victory. So, I mean, listen, it kind of didn't make sense because, like, yeah, sure, she threw in the towel for Nattie. Nattie never quit. So I could absolutely see this leading to an actual I Quit match between these two. Again, Tia Hale has had a rough go of it lately, and I really don't know what Shawn Michaels' plan is for her, but he needs to figure something out because, again, she is too talented to just be somebody sitting on the sidelines. But again, that also speaks to just how great the NXT women's roster is because they have so many talented women on there. And again, you gotta make sure you have them all there to be able to do what you need to do. So we'll see. Next up, we have Shawn Spears versus Nico Vance. If you were hoping Shawn Spears would return to his roots with the perfect 10 gimmick here, you were likely disappointed. He attacked Vance from behind in the ring, so Spears never had a formal entrance, and thus it's unknown what his entrance music will be going forward. They had an acceptable outing with Vance showing that he could hang with the experienced Spears. Spears hasn't been a babyface in a long time, yet he did well in the role here. Lizzie Rain ran into ringside to thwart Izzy Dame's interference coming off of their brawl at the end of last week's Fatal 4-Way, leading to Spears capitalizing on the referee being distracted and pulling in Eddie Guerrero by pretending to be knocked out by the chair for a disqualification win. So he defeated Nico Vance by disqualification. Again, like I said, the match was there. It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the worst. Also, we had Reina Volcan going up against Skylar Ray. So this was the debut for Reina Volcan. And there's been a ton of hype for Reina Volcan online since she put her pen to paper with WWE several months ago. She looked like a star when she debuted and destroyed Tatum Paxley 3 weeks ago. But this was our first chance to see what she could actually do in the ring. This was the standard squash you'd expect Volcan to have in her debut match. Ray was the perfect first opponent for Volcan as she sold her offense exceptionally well and made it look all the more devastating. Volcan utilized multiple backbreakers before winning with a rack attack. Again, Volcan is somebody that they're going to build up. She will eventually probably end up either in the North American Women's Championship picture or the NXT Women's Championship picture. Both of them before she's all said and done and heads to the main roster. All right. Last but not least, we have the NXT Championship Street Fight. Tony D'Angelo versus Naraku. So, amazingly, this marked the first street fight ever for the NXT Championship. We've seen the title defended in almost every stipulation imaginable over the last 14 years. Wow, 14 years of NXT is crazy. D'Angelo didn't waste any time taking the fight to Naraku and chose to forego the in-ring introductions. Naraku then spit red mist in the face of D'Angelo before bringing chairs into the mix. That led to multiple weapons being incorporated into the match, including garbage cans, a ladder, and a kendo stick. All of them got used, and they even brawled to the back during the commercial break. For the finish, D'Angelo blocked a second shot of red mist from Naraku before planting him through the table off the steel steps to retain the championship. As he's celebrating, none other than Mike Santana walks into the crowd to make it known that he's officially in NXT with his sights set on the NXT Championship. So, Tony D'Angelo, meet your next opponent. It is none other probably than Mike Santana. Guys, this has been your episode of NXT. Overall, I'm going to rate this show a B+. I do believe that it was a good show. I do believe that there was good moments in it, big moments in it. I do believe that the Nattie Miss Parker finish didn't make sense to me unless they are going to then turn around and do an I Quit match between these two, maybe at the Great American. Maybe at the next PLE. We'll just have to see what happens there. outside of that, I also wonder what they do with Naraku now, since he is no longer fighting for the. You assume he's no longer fighting for the NXT World Title. So we'll just have to see what happens. But all's well that ends well. Until next time, guys, keep your book and pencil sharp and keep on.